Hello and welcome into our All Linux show here on today's Computer America. Please stand by as we bring to you Marcel Gagné and a host of other...
My name's Ben.
Ben is a host. He's Legion. Sorry.
Here we go.
2, 1.
Broadcasting live, it's America's longest-running national radio talk show on computers, Computer America, hosted by national columnist Craig Crossman. Look for Craig's weekly column in your favorite newspaper. This show is being beamed nationwide at ComputerAmerica.com. Keep it here for technology news, computer products, guest interviews, and your phone calls. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America show. It's the nation's longest-running, nationally syndicated radio talk show about computers and technology. Computer America is heard around the world and coast to coast. And I'm your host, Craig Crossman.
And I'm your co-host, Ben.
And it's Thursday! Welcome into a Thursday edition of the Computer America show. We're coming down slightly from our E3 high. We had two shows about E3. First with Josh Boykin in the first time. We had both hours with Josh, and then yesterday after Dariush Derek-Shani, we had Corey Gallagher talk about the E3. And of course E3, we're going to be feeling the aftershocks of E3 for quite some time.
And of course Craig is done with it, but E3 technically still has today to wrap up.
Yeah,
so.
Right. Thursday. It's going to finish up Thursday.
Yep.
And we'll be hearing more, and we'll have guests from E3, and of course when Josh Boykin returns next.
And you can be sure Nate Evans, whenever he makes his appearance again, he will say how horrible the show was and how lackluster the offerings were. But we're going to talk more about E3 eventually.
Yes, it will. Anyhow, again, welcome to a Thursday edition of the show, and of course, it being the second Thursday of the month, it is our All Linux show. Yes, all about Linux, and more Linux as the case may be, and certainly we have Marcel Gagné is going to be joining us shortly to talk all about Linux, including the wine of the day. Okay, and also I'm very glad to hear we may talk for just briefly Bottle Shock. You finally got to see the movie. I
finally got to see the movie.
Yeah,
I did.
Yeah, but you can't talk yet. I haven't introduced you.
Oh, sorry.
So we're going to be talking about that as well. If you want to participate with us, we'd love to hear from you. 347-884-8881, or just click on any link on any page the link that says submit a question. You can also watch the show at our live video streaming page. Just go to computeramerica.com. Just click on the show lounge on the menu bar there, and you'll be taken to our live video stream already in progress, so you can get to watch the show as well. That said, Ben, anything else you want to mention before I introduce our correspondent?
No, as always, check out the website for past shows, everything we've talked about, that has been happening in the past couple days. You can catch there. Be sure to check out YouTube. It has lots and lots of videos of us doing the show. And I'm really looking forward to today's show, but I think I'm good.
Okay. Well, Marcel Gagné, as I said, is the author of several books, including Moving to Linux, Kiss the Blue Screen of Death Goodbye, now in its second edition. Other books include Moving to Ubuntu Linux, and his newest title is Moving to Free Software. He was also a Linux Journal monthly columnist. His column was titled Cooking with Linux. Marcel was also a regular columnist for Linux Magazine, and he was senior editor and columnist for Ubuntu Magazine and a number of other publications. Please welcome to the show author and columnist and now Computer America correspondent Marcel Gagné to the show. Marcel, welcome into Computer America. How are you?
I'm good. Can I talk now?
Yeah, you can talk now.
Sorry about that. You know, just.
No, that's fine. There's a certain formality and
Well,
procedure.
you know, I'm working really hard to develop a level of professionalism. In fact, I have bought a dictionary to find out what that word means.
Let me know when you find it, because I
for,
can
for
use
you,
it.
for you kids out there, a dictionary is a big book that collects all the words that people know and gives definitions for them.
And lots of dust, evidently.
Yeah. It's you know, my kid nowadays, of course, just does the ever popular, you know, okay, Google, define, and
Yeah,
you know, and it's like, you
exactly.
know, I'm not going to look anything up. Come on, dude.
Right click on a word and
Okay, so Google, you know, I know I'm jumping ahead because we got to talk wine. You know, I mean, this is part of what, you know, this is part of what makes this you know, so good for me is I get to drink, you know, during the day. But Google's coming up with their own version of you know, the, like, you know, Amazon had this Amazon Echo thing, you know, so Google's
yes,
going to have a version of it.
yes.
So, you know, I'm kind of looking forward to that sort of thing. But depending on how it works out, because the Amazon one was never available up here, or, you know, otherwise I might have tried it by now.
Ah,
But I have a sneaky suspicion that, you know, the if Google releases it so that it's available in Canada, it might actually wind up getting used a fair bit around here, because
yeah.
we talk to our machines here. We do. We
Yeah.
do.
Now, before we get started, I understand you and your lovely wife, Sally, were able to watch my movie recommendation, which was Bottle Shock.
Yes, and you told me about it last show and the show before, and for all I know, you told me about it the show before that. It's like, dude, you got to watch this show at some point. So I had to scour high and low, but eventually I did find it, and I did watch it, and it stars Alan Rickman and a bunch of other people. I mean, how can anything with Alan Rickman not be great
Yeah,
anyway?
exactly.
You know, I mean, really. But I mean, it's fascinating stuff. It's based on a true story, and of course, it traces the origins of California's wine success. And I say origins because in the 70s, you know, coming up on the bicentennial and so forth, California wines were a joke,
It was
just
all
sort of like
French,
us.
French wines, French wines.
Yeah, exactly. Just like Australian wines were a joke at one point, and I found out some fascinating things about it. I mean, first of all, it talks about how California wines were introduced at a French wine competition, and of course,
Yeah.
you know, the French and all the wine experts in the world that are gathered there are all like, like, okay, we'll give them their chance, you know, because it is their bicentennial, and you know, you know, it is their bicentennial, and I mean, the Americans did do something good here and there, so you know, we'll give them something. But you know, they never expected that the American wines would win top honors.
Right.
And you know, all of a sudden, California's reputation, you know, as a wine, you know, mecca, if you will, you know, was cemented. That was it. But it was a fascinating show. It's listed as a comedy drama because yes, there are dramatic elements, but there's some really funny stuff in there as well. I mean, you
Chris
know, lines. You know, I may appear very rude to you, but it's because I'm British and you're not.
I mean, it has Chris Pine, who
Yes.
terrific actor, and
Who becomes Captain Kirk in the new Star Trek, right?
yeah, exactly. But I thought it was really well done. I enjoyed watching.
Oh, I loved it. And of course, I found out a couple of things, which, you know, it's like, you know, I don't consider myself a wine expert. I'm a wine lover. I mean, I enjoy my wines, but I don't consider you know, there's no way in Hades I consider myself an expert. However, I do know a fair bit about wine here and there because, you know, I drink it and I try to pay attention to it. But I didn't know what bottle shock was.
Yeah.
And bottle shock, I mean, right off at the top, and it's like, oh, that's so cool. I didn't know that. Well, once upon a time, for the people who are listening who care about wine, and hopefully if you listen to me at all, you care about wine. Once upon a time, it was very difficult to transport wine from one part of the world to another, and you would put it on boats and you know, very carefully, you know, take it from one country to another. I mean, if you had to cross an ocean or something like that, because if you stuck it like in the cargo hold of an airplane, the bottles would rattle inside the cargo hole, and apparently that rattling, that constant moving around, they call it bottle shock. It actually can affect the flavor, the actual flavor of the wine. And of course, this is, you know, back in the days when all wines were you know, all wine bottles were corked as well. So, you know, that had a lot to do with it as well. So they called it bottle shock. And there's a brilliant scene in the movie, you know, without giving too much away, where Alan Rickman is trying to bring all these wines on board, and he says, no, it has to be carry-on. And they say, no, it has to be cargo. Well, you're only allowed one bottle on carry-on. So he tells everyone that, it's to give the American winemakers a chance, so could everybody help me out? So everybody takes one of these wine bottles, which
One
they
bottle.
then give back to him on the other side in
Yeah.
France.
Yeah.
Now, this could not happen today.
No.
Okay?
Yeah.
You couldn't share your luggage among other people getting on a plane. This would be like, major security no-no here.
Could you imagine? It's like, folks, we are trying to make our way to Sweden. We need to give the American hand sanitizing scene a chance. Can everyone take a 15-ounce bottle of hand sanitizer with them? They would lose their mind.
But they do this in the movie, and I'm looking at it, and of course, I don't know if you guys do this. I suspect in the age of Netflix, we all do this. But you pause the show and you talk about it, and then you go back back into the show. So we paused the show at that point. We're looking at each other, and basically just did that. It's like you would never be able to do this today. Like,
yeah, the woman behind the counter too was priceless. She had this
yes.
phony grin that you would smile. Sorry, you can.
And of course, because the rules have been met, or the rules of 1976 have been met, she allows all these people to bring the wine in the carry-on.
Exactly. That's how they did it. All right. Anyway, let me just tell you how you can participate along here. If you head over to computeramerica.com and you click on today's show, one of the things you'll see in there is a link that says cheat notes. You can't miss it. Or if you're listening to us via Blog Talk Radio, it's also there on today's show. It says cheat notes, and if you click that, it'll open up, your browser will open up a Google Docs document, and it'll say June 19, 2016, join my network on LinkedIn or don't. But that is the cheat notes, and then you can follow along with what we're doing. It's just another way for you to participate. And also, if you're watching the live video stream, Ben will be displaying that document as well, because he can display, websites, movies, links, documents. But
he has the power.
He has the power. However, if you do the Google Docs document yourself, the links will become available to you, because there are a lot of links in there that are very valuable. And in addition to that, so it just makes for more an enriched show, so that you can follow along more closely. Now we're going to start here, but before we do, we're going to talk about today's wine.
Yes.
Which is a Chilean wine again, right?
Yes, I did it. I did a Cabernet Sauvignon. I did a Chilean Cabernet Sauvignon last time. Ask me about Argentina.
Oh, Marcel, what's going on with Argentina?
Oh, well, I'm glad you asked. There's an Android app that I think everybody should have, unless of course you're like maniacal about potential privacy incursions or whatever. But it's called Google Rewards, and what you do is you put it on your Android, and every day or every couple of days or every 3 days or every week, I mean, it varies. They have this little survey for you, which is usually something that takes like less than a minute, and sometimes just a couple of seconds, as an answer to this question. Did you ever do this? Did you like doing this? Great. At the end, and that's your survey, and then they give you a few cents into your Google Play account, which you can then use to buy, movies or music or apps or whatever. So it's actually a really cool thing to do. Anyway, so one of them popped up and said, what's the first word that comes to mind when we say Argentina? And of course, the very first word, and none of the word, and it has like 5 or 6 words, and then at the bottom it says other. I looked at the 5 or 6 words, and it's like, no, those are not the words that came to my mind. The first word that came to mind was wine. So I don't know. Apparently, I think of countries in terms of what they produce that I can drink. So anyway, so that was Argentina, but Chile, yeah. So this one is actually a connoisseur. I don't know how to pronounce it properly in Spanish, but I'm going to say connoisseur, and it's a bicicleta, which is basically a bicycle, and it's a Viognier. This is 2015. I've had the 2014 as well, which is really, really quite nice. But this is an inexpensive wine at the LCBO here, and I'll just pour some out here at the LCBO. It is under $10 a bottle here in Canada, so you guys can probably buy it for like $5 a bottle or something like that. But it's a lovely little wine. It's light golden color, so it's not, it's not particularly deep. It's kind of a peachy apricot type flavors. There's this honey that runs through it like all the time, and you can sort of taste it as the taste sort of, in the aftertaste in your mouth. You can sort of taste the honey there, and there's just the tiniest bit of lemon there that that also peeks in at the end there. But it's lovely. I highly recommend it, and it's inexpensive, and it's an easy drinking wine that you can have anytime, and it is good. Like this is actually a good wine.
Well, think
My Spanish isn't what it used to be when I ever knew the language, but yeah, according to the name, of course it's cheap because it is made by Press Bicycles. So
it's made by Connoisseur.
Connoisseur, and he presses bicycles. I mean, it sounds good.
Yeah, exactly. A winemaker. It's like a Viognier Valle de Colchaga. My apologies to all these Spanish speakers out there for destroying your language. I apologize.
We do it all the time to the English language. They shouldn't be offended.
You mean I do it all the time to the English language?
We do, here on the show.
Well, I try to abuse every language on the planet as much as possible.
Equal opportunity abuse.
Absolutely.
So I noticed that the first link on the cheat notes actually is above today's wine. It's cooking with Linux on Flipboard.
Yes. It's we should add that into the introduction probably. I'm a huge fan of Flipboard. Flipboard allows you to. I use a lot of note-taking sort of applications. I like to use Google Keep, particularly for, believe it or not, my shopping list, because I can just say add such and such to my shopping list, and it does it, and it's cool. I mean, it's always available. So Google Keep is wonderful that way, but I also love Evernote. I've been using Evernote for years. In fact, I pay for the premium Evernote service. I love it so much. Yeah. But I also use something called Flipboard, and Flipboard is I'm one of those really annoying people that I see a story, I think it's interesting, and I think everybody should look at it, But you can be really annoying when you're posting like 7 or 8 stories in your Facebook or Google Plus stream in a day. It's like, oh, look at this, oh, look at this, oh, look at this. And I tried briefly putting together a website, and I took care of it for a while. But every website that you do just adds more work, adds more time. And I called it "Look, a Shiny Object." And basically it was, here's something that interested me for a brief moment in time. Don't bother talking to me about it because I've already moved on to something else. Oh, look, a shiny object. You get it, right? Yeah. Anyway, so Flipboard is like this. It's a news aggregator, but what it does is it takes the links that you see, on your portable device or whatever, on your mobile device, and you say, oh, look, here's an interesting story. And in my case, I do have my Look, a Shiny Object, which is just random, things that interest Marcel for a brief instant in time. But I also have one, Cooking with Linux, which obviously titled after my Cooking with Linux thing for so many years. And if I see something that's Linux and open source based that I find fascinating, I just add it to my Flipboard Cooking with Linux book. And at the moment, if I were to bring up the app, I think there are like 900 or 1,000 subscribers, people who actually follow the magazine to be kept up to date. So if you would like to know what I read in Linux and open source that I find interesting, even briefly for a few seconds or whatever, and you'd like to follow up on it, then go to Flipboard and take a look at my Cooking with Linux. There it is on my Android phone, my Cooking with Linux Flipboard, and I've got 3,700 viewers and just under 1,000 followers. The followers are the ones who actually get a message saying, hey, there's a new story. Marcel just posted a new story in Cooking with Linux. So whereas the other people are the people who just check in on a regular basis to see what I've done. So it's reasonably popular, and some of the things that I talk about here on the show are going to be in there as well, including some things that aren't, because they're things that I thought, hey, that's really interesting for a moment, and then I posted it, and there it is. So it's a good way to keep up with what's happening in Linux and open source, and it's this cool. If I don't know, for the people who are looking at it on Hangouts, you can just flip up through the stories. See how you just flip up through the stories? Yeah. From one page to the other, and then if you find something is interesting, then you tap it, and it goes into a reader view for the stories, and you get to read the whole thing. It's a lovely magazine. So I'm going to keep putting it up at the top in the introduction there, because it's a great way to keep up to date on
Can Ben, you're showing the website. I mean, can you flip it too, or is it? Are you just?
Yes, you can flip the website as well, and the website will take you to all the stories.
Does it
But
have that flipping action like you showed? I don't know if he can
oh
do.
well, I don't know. On the website, let me just click it here for fun.
Well, Ben's actually showing the website right now.
Yeah.
Oh, good man, Ben.
No, it just
yeah.
kind of navigates.
Yeah, you just kind of navigate it, so you don't get the flipping thing. But the flipping thing is really kind of cool on the
phone.
on the device, and it's really easy. It's like a friendly little ebook reader where you can keep up to date on the things that interest you. And Flipboard, by the way, allows you to. I know I make these public, like so. I've got a. I think 9 different magazines, and they're all public, so anybody can subscribe to them if you're interested in the various subject matter, whatever it happens to be. You know, I've got stuff on politics there, stuff on robots. If you're into artificial intelligence and robots, I've got a Flipboard magazine for that as well. But you can also create your own private one.
You know, when I look at it, it reminds me of Pinterest. I don't know why.
You know, yeah, it's the same. I mean, it's that idea in the sense that here's something interesting and you keep it, but what's neat about this is it's that magazine format. It's that I'm flipping through stories in a magazine as opposed to I'm looking at pretty pictures and then deciding whether or not I want to, find out what's behind the pretty picture.
But for that experience, you need to do it on your smart device, not your.
You do. You really do. But like I said, it's because of the way it works, it's you're at the doctor's office or you're waiting in line somewhere or whatever, so you just flip through the news stories. It's great stuff.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, so some of the big news today is about Microsoft buying LinkedIn. I mean,
yeah, how can we not cover that? I mean, it's funny we talk about Microsoft on the Linux show because, of course, Microsoft and Linux, it's been, it's been like this for years. Although you're kind of wondering what kind of a universe we live in these days because. As I mentioned a little later, it's starting to sound like Microsoft is, turning into an open source company. Steve Ballmer would, I don't know what he'd do with that, but because he did call it a cancer that needed to be eradicated. So that's, and now it's like, oh, we love Linux, and Microsoft even has this little poster, that goes Microsoft Heart Linux. It's like, really, wow. What happened there? But anyway, yeah. So they bought. So this isn't specifically about, but LinkedIn. I mean, so many people who are, professionals in one industry or another, whether it's computers, whether it's sales, whether it's life insurance. I mean, anything. I mean, pick something. Somebody somewhere who's on LinkedIn. And of course you get those annoying messages from people. I'd like, please join my network on LinkedIn, and you go, who the hell are you? So, because people tend to think that somebody being somebody that on LinkedIn is not necessarily an endorsement, but somebody that and perhaps you can trust hooking up with that person because they know you. But it's supposed to be a professionals network, a professional social networking site, or a social networking site for professionals, if you like. Anyway, Microsoft just bought these guys for $26.2 billion, and like I said, you can sort of imagine Dr. Evil going $26.2 billion. It's like it's an enormous and frightening sum of money, and I have to say that if you like, I hesitated to even put one link to this because one link to the LinkedIn story, because if you just go on a news.google.com and you type in LinkedIn at this moment, you are going to see countless stories that talk about this. Microsoft is supposed to make it final, I believe, by the end of this year.
Right.
Okay, but it has been announced. They've agreed to a deal, which is how we get to that monetary figure. But there are a lot of people that aren't particularly happy about this, and I'm not necessarily talking people who have anything against Microsoft necessarily, but the idea that you've got a big software company, who's in an office, who basically sells office services, Microsoft Office and and other office business services, will now be the gatekeeper to everyone's business.
See, and where you said like people didn't like it, I mean, the places that I've been kind of reading about this, it made complete sense. Like this was. Of course, we're gonna have to wait and see if this was a good move, but the reasoning is so clear, and it made complete sense to me why they would do this, and I think it's actually a pretty good move. This is in the same vein as purchasing Minecraft. Like,
Oh, well, yeah, except that Minecraft is the reason that there's a little bit more controversy, I think, on this one. I mean, there were some people who were pissed off about Minecraft. I wasn't. I mean, it's a game, dudes. And really that's what it comes down to. It's a game. Minecraft is a game. But I think people thought, I think a lot of people have gotten used to thinking of LinkedIn as, yeah, sure, it's a business, but it's a business that's neutral in your business. And let's face it, there are competitors of Microsoft who live on LinkedIn, who work on LinkedIn, who use it as a resource, uh, who may feel that there's this conflicts of interest, there, and and it's kind of it's interesting. Now, I agree with you, Ben, in the sense that it's an acquisition that makes a lot of sense. The figure, I don't know about the figure. $26.2
yeah, that's a
billion
lot.
dollars. But no, it makes sense. I mean, in terms of a strategic acquisition, I think it's hard to argue with this one.
So
Yeah, the acquisition itself, $26.2 billion. I don't know how they're ever going to justify that, but let's face it, they weren't just buying the customers of LinkedIn, they weren't just buying the data of LinkedIn, but Microsoft's, you can't really deny it, other than servers and things like that. Microsoft is the operating system of business, and they want to bring something to business. And right now, I think Skype kind of tries to fill the void, where you need something that you can, get on any computer, that you can talk to people and do that kind of thing, message people, connect to people. But I think Microsoft is going to turn this into a true blue business app. It's going to be something
and I
that
believe
is going to be baked into every enterprise edition of Microsoft.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I think that's part of that's part of the concern that some people have about this. That is making some people uncomfortable. Now, it's early days yet, so I mean, the jury's always out until something actually happens. But it's like okay, so now Microsoft is in charge of your professional contact information, whether you like it or not. Microsoft is going to be, handling your your business-to-business communications, whether you like it or not. And you sort of assume that there was this, again, I'm not saying that LinkedIn was necessarily ever neutral, but that there was this kind of neutral third party that, that mitigated your communication. I think as soon as you put a company with the scope and range of a Microsoft,
Yeah.
In whose business is business, let's be honest, I think it raises a lot of questions and it raises a lot of hackles, and it's inevitable that that's going to be the case. So,
But it's crazy that, like, if people really are upset that LinkedIn is going to get off scot-free, and all this ill will is going to be pointed to Microsoft, because let's face it, this company that you trusted with your data essentially sold it for an incredible sum of money, and hey, they use their users as the product that they were producing.
well, on any social, I mean, I say this to friends all the time. On any social network, whether it's Facebook or Google Plus or Twitter or whatever, you are the product. That it's a free network. It's a free service, but you are the product. You are what attracts your friends to the network, and vice versa. If it wasn't for the fact that we're all on this thing, that each of us is on this thing, there wouldn't be much interest in attracting the other people that we know.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you what. And speaking of Microsoft, we're going to. They're, as you say, they're in the cheat notes here that they're starting to sound like an open source company. And so,
Yes, I did say that. It's just. A little while ago, it's like, we're releasing first we had the, in our Azure cloud, we've rolled our own version of Linux, to control the switching system. And then it's like, well, in our cloud software now we support a number of different Linux distributions. It's like, not just let you run them, but support them. It's like, okay, well, that's really interesting. Oh, by the way, we, Microsoft, are hiring a bunch of, Linux and open source people. Please come and work for us. It's like, what? And then we had, oh, by the way, we're going to release, Microsoft Access for now, for Linux, and here's the preview, and we'll release the full version by the end of the year. The Windows 10, which I realize is pissing a lot of people off with the forced upgrades, but that's another story. Windows 10 will now come for developers, is already available, but for everybody else, eventually will soon come with the Ubuntu. The Ubuntu version of the Linux shell, as opposed to the old CMD prompt. So you are, as your command line environment, going to be running the Ubuntu command line software. I mean, it just keeps sort of happening. They have a development environment, Xamarin, the development environment, which they've just open sourced. It's like,
Wow.
What? They just open source, and now they've released their own version of FreeBSD.
Yeah, what gives with this? Listen, we're up against the break, and we'll continue on with this, and the mysteries of Microsoft now supporting Linux. We're talking to Marcel Gagné for both hours. We're going to take a short break. We have a new Syspol review from Marty Winston coming up, and then we'll be right back with more Linux. You're listening to the Computer America Show.
Sometimes disaster strikes. Data can be lost due to many different reasons. Accidental reformatting, power spikes, virus attacks. Zero Assumption Recovery provides a suite of highly effective and thorough data recovery software for Windows operating systems. ZA is suitable for home users and small businesses who need a powerful data recovery solution for Windows and Linux file systems.
Go to z-a-recovery.com.
Sometimes disaster strikes. Data can be lost due to many different reasons. Accidental reformatting, power spikes, virus attacks. Zero Assumption Recovery provides a suite of highly effective and thorough data recovery software for Windows operating systems. ZA is suitable for home users and small businesses who need a powerful data recovery solution for Windows and Linux file systems.
Go to z-a-recovery.com.
Hi, this is Craig Crossman, host of the Computer America Show. Long before Vistaprint asked me to tell you about them, my wife and I have been using Vistaprint for years, making business cards, having the Computer America logo placed on the polo shirts we use at conventions like CES, even printing a business card for our personal lives with our home address and phone number. In fact, Vistaprint offers tons of custom products for home and office needs, and Vistaprint absolutely guarantees you'll love their products every time, or they will make it right. In fact, they'll give you 500 business cards for just $9.99 when you enter my promo code Craig at checkout. Just go to their website at www.vistaprint.com and see how easy it is to design your own stuff using their web-based custom design service. Remember to use my code Craig and save up to 50% over their regular pricing. So don't wait. Go to vistaprint.com and order today.
Creepy. Not even Siri would talk to him. Hi, Marty Winston with a News Tips Bulletin Review for Computer America. This time, the OR-MPV 5-door mailbox and parcel vault. You know, if we're reviewing it, not to expect an ordinary mailbox, this 85-pound beast is an OR Products OR-MPV Black Classic Shadow 5-door mailbox. It stands more than 4 feet high with an arch-top galvanized steel body, stainless steel hardware, and a cast aluminum face. The top of the front looks like a standard round-top mailbox. Underneath is a parcel box with trap doors inside that drop parcels to a locked vault lower compartment. The rear, away from the street, has a second locked door for the parcel vault, plus a rear door on the mailbox, so no more need to go out into the street just to get your mail. Bottom line, the OR-MPV 5-door mailbox and parcel vault is built to endure and keep deliveries secure. Marty Winston, News Tips Bulletin for Computer America.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. 33 minutes past the hour here as we are talking to Marcel Gagné. It is our Linux program. And and real quick before we get back to it, I just want to give a little shout out to a game that I've been playing like crazy lately, and that is Overwatch. And Overwatch again is the new IP from Blizzard, from Activision Blizzard. And yeah, just yesterday they announced that Overwatch now has 10 million purchases. So not bad. 10 million downloads in like less than a month. So very, very, very successful. So just wanted to throw there. But yeah, speaking actually before we even move on to Elon Musk and games, yeah, we are talking about news, rumors, and other things about the Linux with Marcel Gagné and FreeBSD. So Microsoft has their own version of FreeBSD.
Yes, Microsoft now has their own version of FreeBSD, or OpenBSD, OpenBSD, FreeBSD. BSD is Berkeley Systems Unix, which is actually not a Linux distribution, but it is a free and open source software, which you can download and run. I have a couple of good friends who actually love BSD, and for years have been saying, Marcel, you're running the wrong operating system. You like your KDE desktop? You could have that on BSD. Come on, dude. But no, but so they have their own version of BSD. In the show notes, I actually just inserted the logo from Microsoft's openness.microsoft.com site, which is the Microsoft Heart Linux banner, and it's
Not a lot of ambiguity there on
no,
where Microsoft
not a
stands
lot.
on Linux.
That's actually from the website. I actually included the link, openness.microsoft.com, the blog there, where Satya, what's his name, Nadia? I apologize to him immediately for screwing up his name. Satya Nadella. Okay, and hopefully it's pronounced Satya. Maybe it's Satya.
Right.
Satya Nadella. Anyway, so he did his briefing on Microsoft's cloud initiatives and so forth, and how they love Linux. And he had the big banner in the background, so he's on stage, giving his presentation with that bright blue banner and behind him that says Microsoft Heart Linux, and it's like, wow. Anyway, so Microsoft has come a long way. I mean, I know because I'm in this community and I chat with a lot of people from this community, I know that there are people who look at it, they want to cue Admiral Akbar, it's a trap. I'm not convinced it's a trap. I mean, I think that Microsoft is a business, and Microsoft is a business that is smart enough to understand when something has become mainstream business that other mainstream businesses use, and understands that if you're going to continue making money in that environment, and that's what your customers are using, you're not going to be stupid and say, well, I don't want to have anything to do with that because it makes me look bad. No, you're going to say, we're going to embrace this, and we're going to sell services around this, and sell products that are associated with this, and so forth. So I don't. Unlike some friends of mine, I don't see some dark, some dark design, where Microsoft is setting some great trap where one day they will spring it and go, ha, this is what we wanted to do all along, and now Linux is doomed. So, I don't think that's happening, but it's a weird time to be around because Microsoft was always the enemy, in the early days of Linux, and we had so much fun with it. We even, there's even a suite of games. Maybe I should do a show where we just highlight some of those games. But there's a whole pile of games that Linux developers came up with, which were all built around the concept of Bill Gates as the Borg, and Microsoft as the evil empire and stuff like that. And now it's like it just doesn't ring true anymore. Well, for some people it still does. For some people it's like it's a trap.
Let us hope those people aren't
right. Bring up a graphic of Admiral Akbar.
Yeah, well, let's just hope that those people aren't right, because
yeah, well, let's hope they're not. Just like I always say on every show, I haven't said it yet on this show, so let me say it right now. God, I hope Google isn't evil.
There we go.
I really hope they're not evil, because there we go, Admiral Akbar. It's a trap.
I found it. There we go. Yeah.
Like anybody in the world who has access to technology who might be watching this doesn't know who Admiral Akbar is.
Yeah, he's become pretty popular, but I mean, Microsoft has a lot to gain from including Linux, because from what I'm seeing, like they seem to be replacing a lot of their older stuff, like the command prompt. I've started to learn how to fool around with that, but I think anything Linux that can replace it would be far superior than just a lot of
Well, certainly
Windows
a lot more
basic
flexible.
systems.
I
Yeah.
mean, you've got a whole, not just a whole command line environment, but a whole scripting environment that comes with it, which from an administration perspective would be invaluable. So, and I've known more than one Windows admin over the years who bemoan the fact that the tools, the command line tools, were so limited, in the Windows world. So, I mean, it just makes sense. It's like, how can we make our product better and yet not spend a fortune completely starting everything from scratch? Hey, I have an idea, and it's free. Where's the downside? I can't come up with one. All right, let's do this.
And then you get banners like this: Microsoft loves Linux.
Yeah. Well, I think it's that Marcel is correct in the fact that there's no deep dark. I mean, they're not going to pull the support, and so anybody who switches over to Linux now finds themselves in a world of hurt, or something like that.
No, I don't buy that for a moment. And I mean, as we've established more than once, the internet is built and runs on free software. I mean, are you going to dismantle the entire internet?
No,
not bloody likely.
No. Okay, so we are moving into a more enlightened world.
I put these things down as they come in my brain, and sometimes I think, I should have ordered this differently, but but hey, let's jump onto it just because it's fun. I know this has nothing to do specifically with Linux, but we do talk about games on this show every once in a while because I'm into open source gaming and so forth. But you got to go and look at this. This is from on Vox.com. There's the link. Elon Musk was giving a talk where he came up with, where somebody asked him in the audience, because he's made this illusion before. I mean, he's not the only one who's made this illusion, but it was in the Recode annual code conference, and they were chatting with him about technology and where things are going and so forth. And somebody suggested the idea that this idea that we're all just characters living in a highly advanced video game, and there are some things wrong with the reasoning, but the way that Elon says it and the way that he answers the question, especially when the line that he uses at the end, I'm going to use at the line, he goes, he says something along the lines of, "Do you see any problem with my argument?" And of course, the people are sitting there going, "No, not really." And he uses our the way that video games have developed Pong and things like that and so forth. The rapid development of technology, the whole Moore's law thing, and how things are becoming increasingly complex and so forth. And he suggests that it's entirely possible that we are just characters inside a video game of some highly advanced civilization somewhere. And of course, how would you know you're not? Because you'd be programmed to think that you aren't, or you'd be programmed to question the possibility that maybe you are.
Yeah. There was a group of scientists a couple of years ago that that looked to answer that exact question, and I think they came back with saying that no, we are not in a simulation. And the way they tried to determine was they took the most powerful telescope, and admittedly, you could take it to the nth degree and say, well, it's because our technology isn't advanced enough to detect their technology. And okay, we're the burn proof. We're never going to be able to dispute the fact that there isn't a tea kettle in orbit right now.
Yep.
But they took the most powerful telescope and tried to look down, as close as they could to the very fabric of what makes up our world, and they never found any quote unquote pixelation, any kind of distortion, anything that would imply that there's some kind of resolution that you would think eventually at a certain very, very small measurement you would see in a quote unquote
simulation.
graphic. Yeah.
The argument against that, of course, is that maybe the telescope is just a programmed element, and you see what you've been programmed to see.
And again, like, this brings up that same argument of, well,
would you like the red pill or the blue pill?
Not even red pill, blue pill. It's about the tea kettle in orbit. It's like,
yes,
I say there's a tea kettle in orbit, and they say no, there isn't. And they say, well, prove it, and then what? And then we can't prove it. So as far as we know, there is a tea kettle in orbit somewhere.
Yeah, you're talking about Russell's teapot.
Right.
Yeah, the argument is like, and of course it's an argument that that atheists and atheist groups like to use. Hell, I've used it, but it's one of those arguments.
Right.
It's like, well, well, you can't argue for the existence of something by saying that. Yeah, you could say there's an invisible dragon floating around in my dining room that breathes cold fire, and you
Right.
can't see it because it's invisible, and you can't feel the fire because it's heat neutral, and well, what happens, and Carl Sagan did this on
Plasma.
Candle in the Dark, Demon Haunted World. He actually talked about the dragon, and he says every argument that your friend comes up with, who says that there's a dragon in his garage, it's like, well, all right, well, we could sprinkle something on the ground. Well, the dragon has no weight, so he can't leave any footprints. Okay, so the dragon has no weight, doesn't displace air, he's invisible, he breathes fire that's a temperature neutral. So I can't disprove the existence of this invisible thing, but that's not what you call proof. Proof is show me, like I'm from Missouri, show me. Like
Right.
you have to have proof, and the Russell's teapot is that same argument as well. It's like, how do you know that there isn't a teapot in orbit on the other side of the sun, opposite the Earth and so forth? I don't know. I mean, I can't prove that it doesn't exist, but it seems highly unlikely that there's a teapot in orbit over there. And, if you want me to believe that there's a teapot, you're going to have to come up with some kind of verifiable, observable proof of this teapot's existence. Ditto with us being a computer simulation.
Right, which is where I kind of land with Elon Musk and this whole idea of the simulation. And the simulation hasn't brought up before, but to think that, I think Elon Musk thrives every time he makes headlines because he's very important. He has a lot of big companies with a lot of big money, but he does like to freak out the press a lot. He does like to do things that say Elon Musk said what? Like, I think that's just what he enjoys.
Yeah, you can almost see you can also almost see the glitter, the glimmer in his eye when he says it, right?
Yeah.
So, you know what? Elon Musk is my totem animal. Elon, hire me. I mean, open up an office of SpaceX here in Waterloo. I want to work there. They do cool stuff. I love companies that do cool stuff, and how can you have fun with that? And his argument when he goes at the end of it, he said there's a 1 in a billion chance that we're not a simulation. So of course he's saying, it's possible that this is all real and we're not just simulated, characters, but it's a 1 in a billion chance that we're not.
Yeah, he had to hedge his bets by going, well, 1 in a billion. I could be wrong 1 in a billion.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
Elon.
Elon Musk. I'm only wrong once 1 in a billion times. We have that in common. I'm only wrong 1 in a billion times.
That's a good power to have.
So,
all right. But that was just fun. So we had to include that one. Sorry.
now what's this about OwnCloud closes U.S. office in
Yes. OwnCloud has been an interesting little success story. They're a company that provides. I mean, the word kind of says it all, but they provide essentially cloud-based services that you control yourself. Where you can have your it could be anything from your data, from your files, from your shared calendars, shared corporate resources, collaborative enterprise, and so forth. And one of the developers left the company and started. I mean, it's an open source project, right? Left the company and opened up another one, and it's an interesting story because you kind of wonder just how much of it is just making excuses or whatever. But they closed up this office and they say that it's because of Nextcloud opening up, this confirmation. But it's like the next day. So it's like I said, it's this open source success story, and it's something that there are a lot of companies or a lot of places that are actually using OwnCloud, and it caused a few ripples, of course, because whenever you're using a technology of that caliber, and you see them abandoning like a whole office, you get a little tiny bit scared for a second. You go, does that mean I won't get support for my product? Does that mean they're just going to close up shop everywhere or whatever? So I wanted to mention it because it's an example of an open source project that forked. And that happens regularly in the open source world, and forked with one of the star performers, which brought a lot of the talent, presumably, or not necessarily just the talent, but a lot of the attention along with him. So
So if you're a user of OwnCloud,
the truth is, it doesn't really affect you at this point.
okay.
It doesn't affect you because the software is still available and there's still development being done on it and offices remain open and so forth. But when I posted this originally, I said from the "that didn't take long" department because it's like or
the forked again department,
yeah, or the forked again department. But it's not like this hasn't happened before. There have been forks in open source projects that the fork becomes the de facto project. Now it hasn't, and I don't know that anyone's really been hurt by it. And the perfect example for me is OpenOffice versus LibreOffice. So there was a fork of open. Yeah, you remember that?
Yeah, sure.
But we're all using LibreOffice now, and all of us basically, there's still people using it because OpenOffice still exists as a project.
Mm-hmm.
But most people are using LibreOffice or have migrated to LibreOffice and really didn't notice that anything much had changed.
Well, because it was so close. First of all the files that you had created in OpenOffice was readable by LibreOffice, so it was sort of like, okay, it was. If anything, you just look at it as an update or an upgrade,
Yeah, you kind of do. In the case of the OwnCloud Nextcloud thing, there's also the accusations of you poached our developers, you poached our people,
Yeah.
you took the work that
You
we
just
did.
don't really care about that stuff,
Yeah, and it's interesting. I provided a link for it because it's an interesting window into this idea of a project gets forked, the people move on and so forth in a commercial company, and it's
Right.
interesting because in a commercial company it's like, well, if you do that, there are repercussions, it's secret, there's IP, there are all these other things, lawyers get involved. I mean, it can be a bad scene. It can be a bad scene in the open source world, but things have to be handled a little bit differently as a result of it.
I understand.
Yeah.
Now, for all of our listeners out there who have Chromebooks, this story is I think is really interesting because basically it's a little program that lets you, you've mentioned this, lets you install Linux alongside Chrome OS, okay? And you have a little update on that.
Yeah, I've talked about, I don't know how many shows ago here, but I talked about a little program called Crouton. I don't know if they pronounce it Crouton, but I call it Crouton. Crouton, which is basically a little bit of code that lets you go into a super user shell, basically on your Chromebook, and allows you to do some fun and funky things with it. So it's expanded, powerful shell, and one of the uses for it that people, myself included, I mean, the Chromebook that I've got sitting in front of me, actually, runs a version of Ubuntu in the background. So I actually have Ubuntu loaded on my Chromebook. So if there are if there's software that I want to use and I happen to have my Chromebook with me instead of my my workhorse 17-inch notebook sitting over here, I've got my little 11-inch Chromebook with me, and I can't do it in Chrome because, let's face it, it's a limited OS. It's meant to live online. I just flip over onto the Linux side, and I have all the tools that I need available over on the Linux side. And Crouton makes this really, really easy. Okay, and I've got a link to Crouton there in case people have forgotten. And in earlier show notes, I even had a column that gave you details about how to go through the whole process. And it's frightfully easy. It's actually really, really simple. This is a little bit different. Okay, it's a little bit different because Chromebooks tend to be fairly, on the low end, tend to be fairly inexpensive. So you get an inexpensive notebook. But this is one where you basically wipe out the whole Chromebook.
Yeah.
And start over. So it's sort of like taking your Windows notebook, erasing Windows completely, which I've done, more times than I can count, and installing Linux on it. Except in this case, you're wiping out the Chrome OS. I mean, it involves changes to the firmware. There's no going back from this. At least I'm not sure that there's any going back from this. But I do know that we've got people that like to experiment, who listen to the show, who might find this fun to do. So I put it out there as an alternative to using Crouton. Crouton lets you switch back and forth, but obviously the Chrome OS is going to take some space and take some resources, whereas you're going to divert all those resources that would otherwise go into Chrome OS to to your Linux desktop. So, if you've got a spare one floating about and you're not worried about the idea that you're not coming back from this, then this is an interesting thing to try out. I may do it if I feel particularly brave, but I don't have a Chromebook that I'm willing to give up that badly at the moment.
I'm just having a hard time figuring out the benefits of that. I mean, what could you get out of a Chromebook that you can't get out of a Chromebook by default?
Well, plenty. I mean, there are lots of games that you can't play on a Chromebook. There are applications. There are development applications. Code development applications that you can't do on a Chromebook. There's video editing stuff that you can't do on a Chromebook. There's the Chromebook assumes that you live your life online, that you basically live your life through a browser, which, let's be honest, a hell of a lot of us do these days. Mm-hmm. Even on my phone, there are applications. I'm looking at you, Facebook. There are applications that I deleted from my phone, that I delete from every mobile device because they suck. And then I don't just mean they suck. I mean they suck resources. They suck data. They suck processor time and so forth. They bring your machine to a crawl. I'm looking at you, Facebook. And what you do is you just go through the browser instead. Okay, so there are so many things that we do nowadays that we can just do through a browser. We don't need an app. There's an app for it, but we don't need the app. We can just do it, using the browser, and that would be the reason there as well. It's like you've got Chrome OS. It doesn't do everything you need to do. You know that you can, you can pretty much do anything. Someone once equated, learning how to use a Linux desktop as becoming a ninja. Well, if you want to become a ninja and you don't want to have to go back to this to this minimal OS, then this is a way to do it. But like I said, no going back.
Okay.
I think you did a good job right there of imparting the severity of how badly you can mess up a Chromebook. So
yeah, but it's what hacking is about. Sometimes it's what hacking is about. It's like, let's see what we can do. How far can we push, this technology, this hardware before it breaks?
All right. Well, we're here obviously talking about Linux and all the different versions of it. But this next link makes me kind of scratch my head because you say there's Windows, there's Mac OS. Notice we don't say OS 10 anywhere now. It's now officially Mac OS.
Yes.
They finally made that as of the WWDC on Monday.
Long live MacOS.
MacOS.
And of course, there's Linux. And then he says, and then
there are these guys.
Right.
We talk about it at the All Linux show, but I try to reinforce the idea that it's not just about Linux; it's about open source. It's about open source, open standards. Being able to share technology, being able to share the source code so that we can change it, that we can improve it, that we can make it freely available to people. It's a way of leveling the playing field so that we can try different things. There was an old expression in the open source world. I'm sure it's still used, which is that you design software to scratch an itch. Okay, there's something that you want to be able to do, and you can't do it. Well, open source software, access to open tools and open technology and open standards makes it possible for you to create things, to make things that weren't there before, and there's nothing wrong with that. And yeah, I love running Linux. I run Linux on my desktop, but Linux is the kernel when you come right down to it. It's at the heart of this operating system of this desktop that I use, and 9 times out of 10 I'm actually using Plasma/KDE desktop. That happens to be my favorite. I use others as well, but that's my go-to desktop. That's the one that I come back to on a regular basis. But it's all about the openness of the code and the openness of the software. So while we call it the All Linux show, in some ways for me it's the All Open Source show. So 7 free operating systems that are not based on Linux. And of course, my favorite is, how some people say, they say GNU Linux, GNU/Linux.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's because a lot of because one of the original inspirations was Richard Stallman's GNU project. GNU stood for GNU's Not Unix. It's a recursive acronym. GNU's not Unix, GNU's not Unix, GNU's not, and so forth. Anyway, and the idea was that a complete operating system to replace Unix could be built from the ground up, a free operating system, because Unix was a proprietary and very expensive operating system. So let's start from scratch and let's create a Unix-like operating system from the ground up. Well, the problem is that the tools came first, an open compiler, an email package, an FTP server, all these sorts of things, and a web server. These things kept coming and kept coming. They were tools that people used. And then one day some cat named Linus Torvalds released a kernel, which would then become the Linux kernel, which would become the heart of the Linux operating system into the world. And the GNU Software Foundation and Richard Stallman and company said no, and they said, and then they didn't like the idea that it was called Linux. And the argument, I mean, I've met Richard a few times, and he makes a good argument, but the argument that he made to me was, don't you want to give credit where credit is due? And of course I do, but if I'm going to give credit where credit is due, I'd have to call it GNU/Apache /OpenOffice/Linux/ / all the other things that are involved in it.
Well, a lot of slashes in the name.
Exactly. It's not all GNU code.
Yeah, we're going to have to continue on this, but we're at the top of the hour. So
are you serious?
Yeah, I mean, we're just moving along real fast, and then we'll continue on with this.
All right.
Plus, we're going to be talking about WotC, a cool desktop client for WhatsApp.
Yes.
And a messenger for desktop, and Shutter, and Snap. We're going to all these cool things that are coming up in the next hour of the Computer America Show. We're going to be right back. Please stay with us. We'll be right back momentarily. I promise.
Broadcasting live. It's the only national radio talk show on computers to air every weeknight. Computer America. Hosted by national columnist Craig Crossman. The first hour's behind us, but there's still more of tech news, tech talk, and your phone calls. We're being beamed nationwide at ComputerAmerica.com. You got computer problems? Bring them on. You're listening to Computer America. Computers run the world, and we run computers. Call us or send us an email to live@computeramerica.com.
Hello and welcome into Hour 2 of the nation's longest-running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers. This is the Computer America Show, and I'm your host, Craig Crossman.
And I'm your co-host, Ben.
And we continue on with Monsieur Marcel Gagné, who is our Linux correspondent here on the show, and we continue with him. Just before the top of the hour, we just started getting into the different with GNU and Linus Torvald and they were saying no, why don't you just continue on? I think because bring some semblance to this because it sounds like an interesting story. Oh, and Marcel sneezes. Okay.
Oh.
No, now we're not hearing you.
Yeah, his microphone's off now.
Your microphone just went off. You sneezed and you blew your microphone.
Oh, sorry. Holy cow.
There we go.
He blows his microphone apart.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. Anyway, so so they said we're working on our own kernel. Okay, so I understand that, and there are people who still call it GNU Linux, GNU/Linux, and I appreciate that, and I respect that. But there's a lot more to what we call a Linux distribution than just GNU, and or for that matter, just Linux. And I think that in the general public view, it's a lot easier for people to think of it as just a Linux distribution. And yes, there's Apache code in there. There's there's BSD code in there. There's GNU code in there. There's Linux code in there. There are so many different organizations with different licenses that make up a Linux distribution that it's kind of hard to separate them all. And if you had to give credit where credit is due to every single contributor to a Linux distribution, I think it would get a little bit messy, as I said, with all those slashes. However, at the core of a Linux distribution is the Linux kernel, which of course is what made it all possible, which is what gave it the popularity. Well, the GNU Foundation came out, has their own kernel in development called Hurd, H-U-R-D.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and Hurd has been in development kind of like forever. and it's still not ready for prime time as far as most of us are concerned. But there is a herd, a Debian GNU herd, a herd distribution out there, and maybe I'll give it another shot at some point there. But I haven't. It says never materialized in production ready form. Well, there you go. It says there's a handful of semi-working systems out there. Well, most of us don't want a semi-working system. We want an actual working system. So there you go. FreeBSD. FreeBSD has been around for a long time. It is hugely respected. It has a reputation, along with FreeBSD and OpenBSD, as being rock solid, secure. I have, like I said, I have friends who are as religious as anybody else is about their operating system when it comes to FreeBSD or OpenBSD. So it's definitely a contender. Again, it's all open source software, so it's something that you can try out. There are variations of it called like I said, OpenBSD, FreeBSD, NetBSD. So there are a lot of BSD versions out there. They all have their own unique little flavors and so forth. But they are operating systems that you can run. Plan 9. I should try it someday. I've never actually tried it. But Plan 9 was Plan 9. Let's see. You can actually install Plan 9 on a Raspberry Pi. I should maybe try it for the next show and see what happens. But the final one, which I was going to talk about last show or the show before, and I never got around to it, is really kind of interesting. React OS or React OS. And this one's been in development for a long time. And there's a project called Wine, as in not this type.
Yeah, not the kind he's drinking.
Not that type. Wine actually stands for Wine is not an emulator. And there are variations of it. There's Play on Linux, which is a Wine emulator, which is geared specifically to a lot of Windows type games. There's Crossover from the Codeweavers company, which is a beautiful product I've bought and paid for more than once over the years, which is geared more. I mean, they look at games as well, but they're more geared to productivity, office applications and so forth. So they fine-tune their version of Wine to operate, to work with those particular products. React OS is meant to be a desktop. It's not just I can run a Windows program in my in or on my Linux desktop. It's I can run something that looks and feels and operates exactly like Windows. And I've installed the latest version that they've got there. I've actually run it. You've got the picture there,
Yeah.
Ben, and it's Windows NT.
Yeah, I saw that. It really, I mean, if their goal was to run a Windows environment without, using Windows, they nailed it. It looks just like a Windows NT.
It not only looks like Windows NT, it installs like Windows NT. I installed this thing. I downloaded it. I installed it. It went through the install screens as though it was like it looks like it's installing Windows NT, with a little bar that goes across it. I mean, everything about it is just freaky, except for the fact that there isn't a single line of Windows code anywhere in this thing. It's meant to look like an old Windows desktop and even run Windows applications. They've got in the picture there they've got WinZip Pro running on there, but run a bunch of Windows applications, which it does. I haven't tried everything, but it does run a number of them.
Right.
And I mean, title bars, buttons, fonts, look and feel, everything about it is I almost want to call it an homage to Windows NT. It's kind of freaky.
I can definitely see how it could be freaky, but and this may be a little bit off topic, but it's good to see that WinZip. Did you know, Marcel, that there is a small contingent of people who take pride in the fact that they have purchased WinZip?
Yes, I do know that.
I mean, every time you use it, you just hit OK. The 30-day free trial never runs out. I don't know, but yeah, people apparently pay for WinZip.
I'm a free and open source software guy. I am. I don't deny that, but I have paid for free software more than once. I continue to do it. Every once in a while, I will download something, and if it turns, where they've got a donate to us, and I think it's important to support the projects that you believe in, that you think are worthwhile. And maybe you can't, and the people who produce these things understand that. It's like, I can't afford to pay for your stuff. Well, it's okay. You can use it anyway. But if you can't afford to pay for it, why not help us out a little bit? And I've done this more than once. I've paid for Linux distributions. I've paid for different products. It's like, I find I use this all the time, so I'm going to go and drop $10 in your, in your tip jar or something. Calibre, it's an ebook. Management software. It's a good way to manage your ebook library. It'll let you sync between your Kindle or your Kobo or whatever, or you can just read it on your computer. I gave those guys $100, just because I think it's brilliant software, and I wanted to continue supporting the work that they did. So I've done that. So I can understand that, and it is funny with WinZip, like you said, the thing never runs out.
Right.
You can just keep using it forever. But rather than be nagged and feel bad about it, I always used to just download 7-zip, which was free and open source.
Like you talk about how you hope that Google never turns evil. I hope that WinZip never runs out of its 30-day free trial, because I know a lot of people who have that installed. And getting back to this the seven free operating systems based on Linux, you said that the last one was again the homage to Windows NT, React OS. There was one more on the list. Did you not want to talk about that?
Sorry, I just no.
You're talking. You're impressive for you.
No, I hadn't gotten there. I was still reacting to React OS. But
okay.
Yes, you're talking about Temple OS.
Yes.
Temple OS, Commodore 64. As they put it, it takes some cues from it. It's not a Commodore 64, but it's like it's old, man. Like it's it's an old desktop. There's I'm just gonna segue off that one just for a split second to tell you about I mentioned occasionally desktop environments, right?
Mm-hmm.
And KDE and Unity and GNOME desktops tend to be the big ones. Mate is another popular one, but there are whole piles of them. Cinnamon and so forth. There's one that's actually a bit for bit copy of the Amiga OS. Okay, you're not running Amiga, you're still running Linux, but the desktop looks and feels like an Amiga.
Wow.
I'm not kidding. So Temple OS is interesting. Yeah.
I don't know. Was Ben around when the Amiga was in its heyday?
Ben, were you even born, Ben?
I feel like I'm making the proper faces for, that's interesting. And inside I'm going, Amiga. I took science. I know what an Amiga is. They're microscopic.
That's an amoeba. No.
No, I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
Tell him because the Amiga was way ahead of its time.
Oh, huge. And the graphics on the Amiga blew people's minds in those days.
Oh, I mean, yeah.
It had sprites that could overlap each other, and like it was the most awesome, amazing thing ever created. I mean, it had a following for years after it should not have, and I'm sure it probably still has But Temple OS is really interesting just because it's the idea is how simple can I make a desktop operating system, in today's world? And of course, as they put it there, it takes from a lot of different things. I mean, the basic stuff in there looks like a Commodore 64 basic is what it looks like, which is why they talk about taking inspiration from a Commodore 64. But the key line there for you as a takeaway is weighs in at just under 80,000 lines of code. The Linux kernel, on the other hand, has 20 million lines of code or something like this. It's an incredible project. Let's see, how many lines of code in Linux kernel?
Sorry, Dave, I can't count that.
I really hate Google. I really hope Google isn't evil. But apparently, in 2010, there were 15 million. There were 37. Yeah, 15 million lines of code and 37,000 files in the kernel in 2010.
And this operating system had 80,000 lines of code.
At 80,000, yeah.
And look
Yeah,
at
so this is what you can do with very little code and and very little software. So yeah, so that's the last one on the list. They're all open source, which means if you're if you like to fiddle, if you like to play, and as the beginning of your show says, we use computers run the world, and we run computers. Well, I like to think that the people who listen to the show are people that like to experiment, they like to play, they like to try things, and so forth. And there's a huge maker culture out there, as you can tell, with the Raspberry Pi and 3D printers and stuff like that. So there's got to be somebody out there who thinks, oh man, this could be a lot of fun. I'm going to give it a try. So you know what? I'll probably try it as well. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try. I'm going to download Plan 9 for the Raspberry Pi. I'll give it a try. Okay, and I'll download and install Temple OS, and we'll talk about it next time. What do you say?
Sounds good.
I just wish Ben had seen an Amiga up and running in those days.
Yeah, so do I. So do I. There must be something online that lets you. There must be a live Amiga.
Amiga, a family of personal computers sold by Commodore in 1980s and 90s. Look at this thing. It could be a toaster. I'm not going to discount that they mistakenly got a toaster to.
Yeah. But look at this is the 80s. Look at the operating system itself. I mean, look, and that's just a quick snap of the basic screen there. But you have to remember, this is like pre-Mac. I mean, this was like way ahead of its time, and it had some.
It does look about a decade, newer than anything I've seen from the 80s.
Yeah, and it was something that sold at a fairly reasonable price, Marcel, as I can recall.
Yeah, the Amiga Workbench. Remember the Amiga Workbench?
Yeah.
Oh, it was so cool, man. It was so cool.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You ready?
Yeah.
I just, God, I hope Google isn't evil. Here we go. PNACL-Amiga-emulator.appspot.com.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
And that is?
It's a portable Amiga emulator online.
It absolutely is. So, wow.
And look at the messages that it gives you as it's booting up, loading up the 80s, waking up these people, polishing our floppy disks.
Warming Rick Astley's voice. Yeah. Craig, you said you hoped that I would be able to see an Amiga up and running.
Well,
through the powers that is the
there
internet.
You go.
There you go.
Yeah, there it is. And again, keep in mind it was in the 80s. You're looking at a computer.
It's booting up though. It's actually booting up the whole desktop. I'm looking at my RAM disk and first demos, the Workbench 1.3. It's like, oh man, this is so cool.
Although I will say, and this has no place anywhere, but I will say that some of these loading messages, preparing garden gnomes and downloading reticulating splines, those are references to The Sims, because those are some of the kind of weird little messages you got while you were playing Sims. So
okay, you said that you are you're playing this other game. You give a nod to a game out there.
Yeah, Overwatch.
I am utterly, hopelessly hooked on SimCity Build It and Sims Free Play. Okay? I cannot tell you how much time I spend on those two games. It is frightening. It is scary. I'm ashamed practically. But I am completely and utterly hooked on my Sims and my SimCity.
Sims is one of those games that you can play 1,000 times and still never get bored of it.
It's stupid, and it's stupid. It's stupid, okay? I mean, let me tell you how stupid this is. I build a nightclub for my Sims. I take them all to the nightclub. I put one of them behind the DJ booth. I let them start spinning discs. I put another one behind the bar who starts serving drinks. My Sims are having more fun than I am.
They're having a blast.
They're having a blast. They're having a better time than I do. Like, this is just bizarre.
So I think Ben is booting up to the Amiga is now coming up, so you can see the desktop.
This loading speed, I'll be honest with you, I think they're loading it directly from the 80s. There has to be time travel. This is taking so long.
Yeah, and if you double click on the demos, like the first demos, it'll open up the window. This was a big deal in the 80s. Okay.
Yeah.
You gotta wait. You gotta wait for the little ZZZ icon to stop flashing there. That's the equivalent of the little watch. The little watch spinning. It's the same. There you go. Now double click on Robot City or something there.
Yeah. Well, there you go. but like, and I don't even know what to say. Computers have come so far. Like, you guys like, this was so advanced. Look at this. This is a modern marvel. I'm sitting here thinking, wow, it needs work.
But this was from the 80s.
This was a big deal, dude.
Stuff like that back then.
Hey.
All command line stuff.
Craig.
Yes.
You and I should run off and start our own show, and we'll call it the Old Guys Computer Radio Show. What do you say?
Your audience would be immeasurable.
Maybe I'll start it. The Old Guys Radio Show. All right, today we're going to talk about Commodore VIC-20, and I've got a great program that comes on the Commodore VIC-20. Now get ready to type number 10, print CLS.
Clear screen. Yeah, exactly.
Make sure that you type. Make sure that you type save to your floppy disk. Sorry, not to your floppy disk. What am I saying? To your cassette drive on a regular basis.
Okay.
All right. That was fun. Okay, people on the radio, you really have to go and take a look at the. You have to go and take a look at the demo. Okay, so you got to go back to the Google Hangouts. So go back to YouTube, play this back, just so you can see this desktop and enjoy it. Okay.
Got it. So let's talk about some of these cool other things that you find here. Communication crossover for an app roundup. All right, and you're running a Linux desktop, obviously, and you want to have a. So we're going to talk about WotC. I think is going to be the first.
Yeah. Okay. This is we mentioned Skype. We were talking about Skype and so forth. I've got a few diehards who use Skype, but you know that kids don't use Skype, right? Nobody under 30 uses Skype.
Really?
Yeah, really. Ben, jump in and help me out with this here.
People under 30 use Skype. I hate to be a contradictory, but Skype for a while was the de facto place to talk to other players when playing a video game. Like, you would exchange Skype.
Oh, really? So gamers use Skype? Seriously?
Yeah. Well, they used to. And then Skype, for the longest time, they just fixed it recently, used to give out your IP address with your Skype name. So that caused a lot of problems in the gaming community, in that, people kind of went back to Ventrilo, or they went back to TeamSpeak, or they went back to these other programs. But Skype fixed this problem where they no longer just hand out your IP address willy-nilly, and gamers are actually starting to come back to it because it's a pretty easy way to communicate.
Okay, Ben, when I was talking about young people, I was talking about the ones who carry cell phones with them, who carry smartphones and are chatting on the street.
You'd be surprised how many have the Skype app on their phone.
Well, they're using things like Snapchat, and they're using things like
That
Kik,
too.
and they're using things like WhatsApp.
Honestly, I hate to say this, but the guys go where the girls are, and the girls go where the guys aren't. So
seriously, that still happens?
That still happens. So like, the girls all went to Snapchat, and then the guys are like, oh, the girls over at Snapchat, we'll use Snapchat, and then the girls like, oh, well, now we'll use Kik or WhatsApp or whatever. Yeah, the girls go where the guys aren't, and the guys go where the girls
So what
are.
you're saying, it's commutical way.
Pretty much.
Okay. Anyway, but so WhatsApp is used by an awful lot of people. It was Facebook who bought WhatsApp, I believe, and who bought it for $6 billion or something like that. People throw these numbers around like they don't mean anything, which makes you wonder what money actually means. But I digress. So WhatsApp, I do use WhatsApp. I mean, I'm kind of, I know some people are like, if you want to talk to me, you will talk to me on the communications client that I like to use. I use whatever people use. So on here I've got WhatsApp, I've got Snapchat, I've got Skype, I've got Google Hangouts. I mean, pick something, I probably got it on here. But I do like WhatsApp, and I've got a number of my relatives that use it, including a couple who now live overseas, and I have to admit that because I spend so much time working at a desktop, it's fine to pick up your phone and send a message and so forth, but I do like the idea of having something that runs on the desktop. Now, WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger as well have a web-based version of something, but you've always got your browser open. You've got your browser open, and then you have to flip to the tab and so forth. But there's this I don't know who it is. I don't know what the person's name is, but I've got the link to the site there, who created a standalone WhatsApp client for the desktop. And you can get it for Mac, you can get it for Linux, and it's WHATSIE.chat. And I've used this thing. I've been using it, and you know what? It's really cool. It's really neat. The WhatsApp one, I was kind of blown away by just how easy and nice the WhatsApp was set up. And really, what you do is when you open it up, it'll show you the little barcode. You take your phone and you scan the barcode, or the QR code, I should say, and it's connected. So the thing is connected on your desktop, and now you have a standalone WhatsApp client on your desktop. There is a. Sorry, go ahead.
It's called WhatsApp, right?
It's called WhatsApp. It's called WhatsApp. It is not affiliated with WhatsApp in any way, but it works beautifully. I mean, it works a charm, and it feels lightweight and nice, and I'm impressed with it. There's 32 and 64-bit clients for Linux. I downloaded the, I installed the 64-bit client on my my Kubuntu desktop over here, and I've been using it for a few days. I love this thing. I mean, it's just so nice to have these little standalone clients, these little standalone chat windows that I can refer to and send messages without having to open a browser or to always be reaching for my phone when I want to contact somebody. So.
And you can see, if you're watching the live video stream, Ben's got it up right now. You can actually see what it looks like on OS 10, Windows, and Linux. And it truly is a desktop version of WhatsApp. But
yeah, it's lovely. They say OS X, Windows, and Linux. But like I said, it's a DEB. It's a simple Linux package that you can install, and I can't recommend it. I can't recommend it enough. Now, interestingly enough, the person who came up with this thing also decided to create a Facebook Messenger client, which you have to authenticate with, and I've got the link to that one as well. And that one is called Messenger for Desktop, is what they call it.
That website looks eerily like the WhatsApp website.
Eerily.
If you go between the ticks, one is green and one is blue.
Yeah. and again, works beautifully. I was hugely impressed with just how clean and how nice it looks, and kudos to that person. I mean, you did nice work, and I appreciate it. It's great.
Yeah, it is.
So there you go. If you're running a Linux desktop, you can have a standalone WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger client.
And they're free?
They're free. They're completely free. Just head to the site, do a download. I didn't even see a button that said fill my tip jar if you think I'm wonderful. I'd be tempted to give this person a couple bucks because hey, sweet, really really nice.
Now this next one, you don't have a link for it. It's Shutter, which is.
I don't have a link for it because it's actually in your repository. I remember last month I talked to you about a KDE bleeding edge KDE plasma project called Neon. And so I'll tell you the backstory before I tell you about Shutter. So I'll include a screenshot before we're done here. I'll include a screenshot. I'm going to have Shutter take a screenshot of itself. That'll be interesting. I wonder if you can do that. Let me try that right now. Shutter, select window. Can I select its own window? It doesn't let me. Oh, wait a minute. Can I take a? This will be interesting. Whoa! It works. It works. I took a screenshot of the Screenshot app with the Screenshot app.
And then his computer blew up.
Sweet. Okay, so I'll throw that into the. I like it. I'll throw that into the document anyway. So because I was using this bleeding edge version, my go-to Screenshot app, which is K-Snapshot. It's the KDE Snapshot app, and I use it on I use it all the time, and I do mean all the time. Every day I use it, and it wasn't working because I was using this bleeding edge version of this development version of KDE, and it's like, what? I don't have my snapshot tool. This is outrageous. So I went looking for clients that would integrate nicely into my desktop. I mean, the fact is, I can actually grab a window by, blah, 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 blah. I can do a command line and grab a window. And heck, in my first book, which it goes back to like 2000. How far back does that go? 2001? I mean, a long time ago, man. Anyway, I actually described how I took screenshots, and I took screenshots by building this command line and pointing to a specific window that was open on the desktop. So, the idea that I would have to go back to that was like, Shutter. Get it? Shutter. Anyway. So I went looking for other things, and I tried 2 or 3 different things, and Shutter was just really sweet. There's a client that I've used for taking screenshots. When I did moving to free software, a lot of that was Windows software. So it was free software that runs on Windows. And I used a screenshot app, and I'm having trouble remembering what it's called at the moment. And of course, it's not like I've booted up a Windows desktop in the last few months. But it was this really nice tool that was sort of all-encompassing. And Shutter makes me think of that a little bit. It's not quite the same sort of thing, but it's nice in how complete it is and what it'll do. And it's a windowed application. It lets you take a section of a screenshot, lets you take an open window, lets you take a complete desktop if you like. But the other thing that I like is it sits in your system tray at the bottom. So what you do is you right-click on your system tray, and right there you can say, well, I want to select a portion of a desktop or of an open window. I can select the entire desktop, a particular open window, and it names the particular open window, and it's all from and it's always there. Whereas K-Snapshot was something that I actually had to open up. So what's weird about this is in trying to find something that would help me replace briefly, and that's the way I thought about it, briefly the tool that I always used, I found one that I always want to use now.
All right, listen, we're at the bottom of the hour break, and we're going to continue on. When we come back, we'll talk about Snap, a universal installer for Linux. And then we'll do our distribution focus. Look at some of the strange and wonderful distributions of Linux coming out there with Marcel Gagné. We have another News Tips Bulletin review from Marty Winston coming up as well. We'll be right back with more Computer America. Host of the Computer America Show. You have important meetings to schedule. Your company's getting ready for its IPO, and you're in charge of the PTA fundraiser this month. So how do you coordinate everyone to be available at the same time? Are you still using emails, phone calls, even text messages to schedule meetings with a group of people? How's that working out for you? Not so great, huh? It's a fact that every day, millions of people suffer from scheduling headaches. Well, with Doodle, scheduling meetings with a group of people is quick and easy. With Doodle, you can easily propose available times to each member. Each one checks off the times that they're available, and then you simply pick the time that works best for the group, all in an easy-to-read display that integrates with your existing calendar. Nothing could be more simple. Give Doodle a try for free, and like millions of Doodle users, you'll truly see how easy it is to find the perfect date and time for all your meetings. That's www.doodle.com. Looking for a best friend? Brother Wolf Animal Rescue has your best friend waiting just for you. The mission of Brother Wolf Animal Rescue is to help build a sustainable, no-kill community where no dogs or cats are ever killed for population control, where true euthanasia is reserved only for animals who are irremediably suffering, or for animals who are truly a threat to society and with no hope of rehabilitation. Brother Wolf staff and volunteers go door to door, neighborhood by neighborhood, to educate citizens about local resources available for at-risk pets and to help their families connect with those resources. Brother Wolf's community-based approach to no-kill helps keep family pets healthy, happy, and in their homes and out of the local shelter system in the first place. For more information or to make a tax-deductible donation to this wonderful 501c3 organization, visit their website at www.bwar.org. Help to realize Brother Wolf's vision when no animal is euthanized for lack of a home.
Who's a good boy?
Ew, sorry, robot vacuum still can't dodge droppings. Hi, Marty Winston with a News Tips Bulletin Review for Computer America. This time, the MyPhaser X10. It's the size and shape of a smartphone, and a front print that looks like a handset screen helps sell its masquerade. But the X10 MyPhaser is something else entirely. With its arming switch off, it's a modest LED flashlight. Yawn. Flick that switch on, and it's a high-voltage stun gizmo that, when skillfully used, can disorient or disable an assailant. Hey, don't you dare use it on anybody who isn't. We note a higher word count in the warnings and disclaimers than in the instructions, as there should be, because this thing delivers
Ow.
a big kick. Bottom line, my phaser may look like a phone in your hand, but it leaves bad guys wishing for a soft place to land. Marty Winston with a
Ow.
News Tips Bulletin Review for
Stop that.
Computer America.
I'm just saying that that Marty Winston said only use it on assailants, and Craig is saying ow. So maybe the host of the Computer America show assails often. That's all I'm saying.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, welcome back to the Computer America show. It is 33 minutes past the hour as we head into the twilight hour of today's show.
Okay.
With Marcel Gagné. It's our
The
all-in.
Twilight Hour or the Twilight Zone?
Rule of both, I think.
No. So yeah, and we are doing different messaging apps that you can install on your Linux, and it seems like a lot of these at least WhatsApp and Messenger for desktop. I think those are kind of like the better versions of messaging, because don't get me wrong, unless you hit it, strike it really big and get young people onto your messaging app, the messaging apps that no one goes on are pretty pointless because no one's there. But the ones that ports existing messaging apps to different devices, that makes the world of sense to me. So those, and now we are moving on to Snap, though.
Yeah, so we'll leave Shutter behind, which is seriously, Shutter, it's awesome. I love it, and it's in. I mean, you can download it. It's in your distributions repository, so you don't even have to visit a website. You just bring up your software center for, whichever distribution you happen. Just look for Shutter, S-H-U-T-T-E-R. Like the shutters on a window. Awesome, man. I love it. I love it. Anyway, and you can actually edit the you just edit the image from there and modify. It's great. I love it. Have I mentioned I love it? I love it. Anyway, Snap. I covered Snap years ago. I mean like a long time ago, and things have changed like an incredible amount. In fact, I'm gonna just so that I can go back into it here. The idea was to create a package installer that would, right now, packages have to be created for each individual distribution. Okay, so it's the idea was, is there a way that we can create like a universal installer? It's not a Red Hat installer, it's not an Ubuntu installer, it's not a whoever installer. And what that involves is packaging up in the way that you might think of, in the old Windows world, you had like an exe file that was the whole program. Mm-hmm. And then we got into this, for the people out there who are running Windows, who can sort of think about that. And then at some point, it was, it would be easier if we just share the code across a whole bunch of different things. So all of a sudden now it's like, well, we had the program and the libraries that were shared across a whole bunch of different things. And while I appreciate the idea of doing this, I mean, it sort of makes sense. You save space, you save resources, and so on, save development time and costs, and so on. The problem with that, of course, is that it becomes specific to a particular release, okay, or to a particular operating system, or to a particular whatever. So the idea of bundling something in a way that it was available to whatever you wanted, like I said, a universal installer, so to speak, is kind of a cool idea. So Snap, I included a link to it, is apparently finally coming of age. Like I said, I remember writing about this a few years ago, and it was like, this is really cool. This might actually go somewhere someday, and then it's just sort of just seemed to fizzle out, and now it's coming back to life in a big way, and that may have something to do with some of the bigger distributions, Ubuntu in this case, putting some of their resources and some of their work behind it. But it's a cool idea, the idea that you can install something, and like I've got it on my desktop at the moment here. you just snap, you get snap space, install space, whatever, and it'll pull out the appropriate version depending on what it is, and it's not specific to your own particular distribution. There's not, I mean, I can't describe this in a big way. I've got the links to it if you want to give it a try, but it works, and it really works well, and it's really kind of cool. Find packages that are known that refer to this sort of thing, install this particular package, whatever, and it's command line stuff, but it's distribution neutral. It's worth checking out. Like I said, because it's command line, there isn't a lot to show about it. But for people out there who might be frustrated at the idea, I'm trying to find something for my specific distribution, this is kind of distribution agnostic. It's a really cool idea that works very well, and it's coming of age. So check it out.
All right, so we're going to move to our distribution focus, and I know you have one that we're going to be talking about today, and it's called X-Lite.
Yeah, I mentioned X-Lite because I love backstories. Do you watch Phineas and Ferb?
No.
I'll be honest. I was like a Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon kid.
Okay, all right. Just to make this clear, okay, so that you understand this. Phineas and Ferb is the greatest cartoon show ever created, ever, of all time, in all history, in all countries, in all, universally speaking, even I'm talking about. Phineas and Ferb is the best cartoon ever.
You've never seen Gravity Falls?
I'm a guy who grew up on, yes, I've seen Gravity Falls. It's a lot of fun, but Phineas and Ferb is better. Okay? All right. Phineas and Ferb is freaking awesome. There's so much happening in a Phineas and Ferb episode. It's scary. And it touches on so many different tropes and so many different styles. It's scary. It's wonderful. It's it's music and mad scientists and secret agents, and I mean, it's freaking awesome. Have I made that clear yet? Phineas and Ferb, people, the best cartoon show ever created. Anyway, on Phineas and Ferb, there's an evil scientist called Dr. Doofenshmirtz, and as is and of course, it makes fun of every evil scientist that's ever happened in every movie, including Bond films and so forth. I mean, it pokes fun at that trope. And before he goes in to explain why he's created his latest evil weapon to take over the tri-state area, because for some reason he doesn't want to take over the world, just the tri-state area, wherever the hell that is. Okay? He always has to have his backstory. Okay, so he has a tragic backstory to absolutely everything. It's like, back when I was living in the old country, this happened to me, and because of this, I swore that one day I would take over. It's brilliant stuff, people. You gotta watch Phineas and Ferb. Anyway, and the Disney Corporation is going, well, thank you, Marcel.
They really are.
Anyway, Phineas and Ferb, it's lovely, and I've watched a lot of shows with my kids over the years, but that's my fave. Anyway. So the tragic backstory goes something like this. I was, this isn't actually tragic, but here I mentioned the year of code. We were talking about the year of code. And back in here in Waterloo, I volunteered, helped a little bit with the Year of Code thing. My wife Sally did a humongous amount with the Year of Code. She did an incredible amount with them. And she helps out with the Hacker Girls program here in town. It's really kind of cool stuff. But I went to help put a whole bunch of old PCs together. So I spent some time on a weekend a couple of weeks ago, and the idea was to load up a bunch of old PCs that were donated to go out into the community, and they needed a bunch of hands basically to load up operating systems on these PCs. Some of them were Windows 10, some of them were Linux desktops, and so forth. But the point is that some of these were old pieces of hardware, and they don't run modern operating systems. So every once in a while, one of the arguments for running a Linux desktop is it can be more lightweight. It doesn't require as many resources. So you can run your Linux desktop on older hardware. So you don't have to throw the stuff out. It's actually still useful because you can run a more lightweight desktop, while still running something modern under the hood. And sometimes you're not running something more modern under the hood. You're just running an older distribution, which is still able to give you what you need to be able to do. So that happens on a fairly regular basis. But that also means that you're running a lightweight desktop, which doesn't, which is not quite as much horsepower. Well, there are lots of old desktops. There are desktops that are so minimalist, it's scary in terms of how minimalist they are, including like the original X-Window desktop environment, from the old Bell Labs days, or sorry, not Bell Labs. Well, yeah, Bell Labs as well, but Xerox days. So we're talking like really, really old stuff. But some of them were really quite beautiful. Window Maker was a desktop that was really quite beautiful. Enlightenment was a desktop that was really quite beautiful. Just really nicely done. The way that they did Icon, the way that they created, little mini programs that were both icons and programs all at the same time. It was really kind of glorious in the way that they did that. And lightweight. Remember that 80,000 lines of code operating system?
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Okay.
Where it's not bloated, and it's all, in one little thing. And like I said, I still have a soft spot in my heart for Window Maker. I love Window Maker. I love Enlightenment. Well, this is actually an environment, a distribution called Xlight, EXLIGHT. And what's interesting about it is it's based on the Enlightenment desktop environment, or Enlightenment desktop. It's beautiful, it's lightweight, it's really, really pretty, it's customizable as all get out. But it's based on Ubuntu Xenial, which is like the very latest and greatest in terms of the software that's available, in terms of the patches, the security, and so forth. So I installed and ran this thing for a little while, and I included a screenshot of my desktop there that I was running. It's yet another Linux distribution, but it's like I said, it's lightweight, it's fast, and it harkens back to those minimalist desktops where the environment actually did things, and because it's Ubuntu, because it runs all the applications, you're not missing out on anything by running this, other than maybe getting a feel for what a nice, slick-looking, highly customizable desktop environment might look like, while still providing you with the tools that you've got. Now, this particular distribution comes with things like LibreOffice and the Chrome desktop browser, and when you install it, it'll actually even ask you whether you want to install the Linux Mint. One of the things Linux Mint has got going for it is it says, do you want to install all these proprietary codecs? In other words, do you want to install the non-free software so that you can play your Flash videos and all that sort of stuff? This one does that as well. So it's nice because it takes care of everything for you up front. I'm obviously running this one in a virtual machine, if you take a look at my screenshot there. But it's one I'd recommend. I like it. It's pretty. It's nice. It's sharp. It's fast.
All right, so that's a distribution of the month that Marcel.
That is the distribution of the month. That's the one I'm recommending for this month.
Yeah, I love that.
And it pairs nicely with a Chilean white wine.
It's nice. It really. I liked it. It's nice. It's cool. It's good stuff.
And what we like to dedicate the last 15 minutes or so of the show is to Linux Playtime.
Playtime. My son, Tristan, my youngest son, who actually turns 9 years old today. Happy birthday, Tristan!
All right.
Everybody, let's sing happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you, Tristan.
Happy to you. Happy birthday, dear
Tristan.
Happy birthday to you.
There you go.
Oh, that was beautiful.
Craig, you don't have to use that one anymore because Happy Birthday is no longer copyrighted.
Yeah, it was never. It was BS right from the beginning. Money-grubbing little.
Don't get him started.
Don't get me started. We'll be here all day.
Neverpot. Let's talk about Neverpot.
Okay. All right. So my son Tristan, who's 9 years old today, was pointing out he looks, he's playing his games, and of course, they have ads. It's like, play this ad and we'll give you some free gems to use in your game. So you sit there and it shows you an ad for yet another game, right? And Tristan says often it's like, this is just basically this other game. Okay, so you get this all the time, and it's like, it's like Candy Crush. Candy Crush is basically this Bejeweled. There are so many games that are basically just some old game redone. It's just like it's always, can't tell you how many match 3 games we see. Can't tell you how many, bubble popping games you see, stuff like that. It's like, these things just keep coming up. So I started showing Tristan these old games, which is like, it's like, take a look at some of these games. This is basically some of the precursors to the games that you're seeing today. There was some other marble game that he was doing around where he's holding the tablet and he's moving a marble around to do something like that. And I thought, hey, take a look at this. It's a mini golf game that you play online that's played basically with a ball that moves onto this surface that is affected by gravity. So it actually uses a physics engine to make sure that the ball moves, realistically in a particular way. Sorry, and I played this years ago, and it gets updated. It's got newer courses, and some of them are insanely difficult. And the first one is called Never Putt, and Never Putt and Never Ball, as you can probably guess, come from the same person or from the same developer. Mm-hmm. And Never Putt has a number of different courses, and you can rotate the courses around in 3D space, which is really kind of cool. So you use your mouse, and you are actually rotating the course. And when you do that, you move the mouse back, and that increases the strength of that you hit the ball with. And the physics on it are very realistic. You bounce off walls, and you try to go around objects and so forth. It's like a mini It's like see, they're modern versions. It's the same thing.
Look at that.
But, so you've got all these modern games that use basically exactly the same technology as these old games. So I took these things out. I pulled some of these things out, and I said, you talk about the idea. Somebody says, oh, it's just a copy of this game, and of course he picks a popular game that he plays today, right? Because that's what he's grown up with. He's grown up with these games that he plays today. So I'm explaining to him. I said, dude, there's nothing new in this world. you know.
When I saw the screenshot that you put up there, it immediately reminded me of a game, and I don't know if it's the same one that he's talking about, but it's called Golf with Your Friends, and it's all multiplayer, so like you all play at the same time, and it although it throws in some curveballs, like you can set it to random golf balls. So, everyone knows the traditional circle, but you can play with like a dodecahedron, you can play with a triangle, some people get the square or the cube golf ball, and that is just awful to play with. But yeah, it's like this whole thing, but like the screenshots that you showed from the other game, Never Putt, yeah, there we go, look just like it. I mean, the crazy courses and the very minimalist design. Yeah, you're right. It's
and of course they're insane courses that you couldn't build in real life, right?
Right.
Like it's like obviously the ball follows the physics of the environment in which it's put, but you couldn't actually build. I mean, I'm not sure that you could. I don't think that you can build, some of these environments in real life. It's really kind of cool that way. So yeah, so I started introducing him to some of these old games. It's like, they still look cool. They're still 3D graphics. They're still, they still use a physics engine so that they mimic what would happen, if you'll pardon the expression, in real life if you actually hit the ball along a curved surface or, around a corner or something like this, and had him play some of these things. And of course, the idea behind it was, it's not so much that there's nothing new in this world. It's that it's, because he was beating up on some of these games, like saying, oh, it's just this. It's like, well, yeah, but everything is just this redone a different way. Like. And I guess that's one of the things that drives me crazy sometimes about some of these, intellectual property and patent arguments and so forth. It's like, you didn't come up with this crap. Somebody else did it before you, time and time and time
but
again.
But they're the first one to file the paperwork.
Yeah.
Well, I know, but that basically says that the paperwork is BS. The paperwork isn't worth the paper it's fricking written on, because you're not the one who did it first. It's like Richard Stallman, give credit where credit is due. Well, if you want to give credit where credit is due, you stood on the shoulders of giants. You stood on the shoulders of other people who did this before you. So Never Putt is like it's a mini putt game, and how far back do mini putt games go? Probably to the early days of golf in Scotland, for all I know. Mm-hmm. But this one is like a 3D game that rolls around in space. There are lots of different courses. Some of them are really, really cool. Never Ball if you've ever done like these maze games, where you've got a ball in the maze,
Yeah.
I've got one. I've got one somewhere here in the house. It's actually a wooden game with a maze on top, and you've got two little controls where you basically move the platform left and right, up and down,
It's
and the ball moves around, and you have to avoid the holes.
It's called Labyrinth.
Oh, is it? Okay, all right. Well,
I had one like that when I was a kid too. With the
I still have one. Oh, and there's the new ones. There's Perplexus, which puts it inside a ball.
Yeah.
Have you seen Perplexus?
No, I have
it's
not.
way cool.
No.
So it's like the same old stuff, but redone, rethought out in a different way. So Neverball takes these insane environments, again, in 3D space, which you can rotate any sorts of different ways. And really what it comes down to is you're rotating the platform like you do in the maze that you were talking about there, Craig. Okay, so you're rotating the platform in space using your computer and trying to get it into a target at the end of it while avoiding every other pitfall that there is. And of course, they throw things in like you collect coins along the way to give you additional scores.
What I'm trying to do is I want to see if I can get a couple other here because we're almost out of time.
Sorry.
Let's try Rotorcross. Looks
okay.
great.
Yeah. You ever try to fly a drone? Like I'm talking about one of those little drones that you buy.
Yes.
You go to the store, you buy a drone. You ever try to fly one of those things?
Yeah.
Yes.
Fun.
But it's also nuts. It's hard. It's hard. I mean, I know that they've got some new ones now that like automatically stabilize, and they basically do everything for you. It's like, go to that location, take a picture of this, and come back, and they'll do it all for you. But I'm talking about the little hobbyist ones. Where you've got the little controller in your hand, and you're moving them back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. It's hard. So I found this game called Rotorcross, which it listed as an alpha. It's a free game, and it works on a number of different platforms, including a Linux platform. And you've got this little drone that you fly through a number of different environments that they've got planned out. The 3D environments. They use the Unity graphics engine. So you've got this smooth flowing graphic like you do on a lot of the modern games that you might play on your tablet, and it's really hard, and because it's really hard, like to me anyway, because it's really hard, you just want to do it. So you're sitting there desperately trying to come up, trying to stabilize this thing and move it through the course, and and race against time because you can actually set up AIs with it. So you can set up AI drones that you can race through the course, and
some of the images are really spectacular. It's just very
yeah. I'm going to skip the media behind it because I just realized I left the media stuff from last month in there, so I'm going to skip that one there, and we'll just go back to Frozen Bubble just for fun there. There are tons and tons of bubble popping games on Android platform at the moment. This is an oldie, except it's an oldie that gets updated constantly in the Linux world, called Frozen Bubble, and super games for your kids, and a super game on the desktop. And I played this, and again, I've seen this thing, evolve over time on the Linux desktop. It has changed continually over the years, and it's been years, and I can still play this game, and I can still have a ball with it. And do we have time to talk about Scratch?
Yeah, just real quick because I want you to talk a little bit about Scratch, and then we have to talk about you.
Oh, okay. All right. So let's talk about Scratch. I'm mentioning Scratch because we did the Year of Code thing here in Waterloo, and of course there's been the Hour of Code stuff on the net. You know about this, where the idea is that it's probably useful for everybody, frankly, to learn something about programming. Not necessarily to get a job, but to get an understanding of the fact that this isn't magic. This is how computers work. This is how you can make computers do things for you, and so forth. And of course, it teaches you to think logically and systematically in a way that you might not otherwise have a chance to experience. Scratch is and parents, if you've got kids out there that are anything about 7 or 8 years old, like 7 years old even, you got to look at Scratch. Scratch.mit.edu. Scratch is a graphical programming, object-oriented programming environment on the web where kids can create games, they can share them with others, they can share the code that they created, and it's drag and drop. You basically drag the for loop, the where you move objects around on the screen, and there are kids out there, there are people out there that have created awesome little games, awesome little projects in Scratch. It's a frighteningly great resource for your kids, and what's beautiful about it is it's language agnostic. Okay, it's the concepts of
Right.
programming without tying it down to a single programming language. You know what I mean?
Yep, absolutely. And I mean, I think of things like what was it with the turtle and
Yeah.
they
This is
have
better than that. This is better than logo.
a logo. Yeah, exactly. We don't have time to get into the home entertainment links.
Yeah,
Like,
let's do that. Let's not do that.
yeah, and Universal Media Services. But if you got the show notes, you'll see the links to them, and you can try them out. Marcel, what are you up to these days?
Well, I mean, I continue to run my computer consulting business. I am deep in the middle of a project that I'm hoping to launch this month. I mean, this month is in the next couple of weeks, before the end of the month. And I want to do a Cooking with Linux, I wanted to say the word podcast, but on a show on YouTube, where I am going to, where I'll share my wine. So there'll be little snippets. I'm trying to keep them all to under 5 minutes, so that they're small and easily digestible. And I'll show you what's happening on my desktop. I'll take you through different applications. We can talk about them hopefully on the next show. How you use a Linux desktop, how you use different applications, and so forth. The sort of thing that's kind of hard to do on radio, where you can actually see the stuff at work, and and play with the whole, keep the wine flowing, and keep the open source applications, share them along with the proper wine on the show. So that is what I'm looking to do. And
well, Marcel, again, thank you so much for being here with us. Please stay with us to the end, and we will. I just want to mention that on tomorrow's show's Friday show, in the first hour, we're going to have a company called Wind, W-Y-N-D. And they, according to them, make the smartest technological air purifier for your personal space.
60 seconds.
We're going to have the company's CEO and co-founder Raymond Moo will be joining us in the first hour, and then in the second hour, it'll be computer and technology news brought to you by Slimware Utilities, the official optimization software of Computer America. Again, I want to thank all of you for being here. Yeah, look, there's you. And Marcel will be with us next month, at the same time, if you're into Linux, and I'm sure you are, and we will have him back with us. So anyway, have a great day, and Ben and I will see you tomorrow, same time, same place, same station. So until tomorrow afternoon, this is Craig Crossman, hoping that your hard disk never becomes floppy. We'll see you tomorrow afternoon.
Have a good one, everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye, Marcel.
Bye.
10 seconds.
And we're out.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
Now we're out.
Now we're out. All right, Marcel, thanks again for being with us, and everybody for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow, okay?
All right, you take care out there.
See you next month. Bye-bye.
Bye.